Well, Happy New Year, everybody. It's 1 o'clock. It's our first webinar for January. I would like to ask you to, if you haven't already, please mute your microphone. We've heard a few conversations over a hot mic. So if that was you and you could press the mute button, that would be helpful. I'll handle questions at the end. And I think there was a typo in the invitation. I'm not intending this to last for an hour and a half. It might go over half an hour, but there's some good information that you can take back with you. You don't have to take notes or write anything down. You can just watch and listen. And at the end, we'll have the questions. So I'm going to slip over to Solomon at this point. This is our homepage, solomonappraisal.com. Tomorrow sometime, if you click video links and then webinar recordings, you will enter our playlist of all the recordings that we've done for these webinars. So pick any one you want and watch it. This one will probably be ready tomorrow. And today we're going to be talking about our resources, one that I've just been preparing, and we're going to be having for our topic today, which is under downloads. And if you see the downloads here, they go back a while. But this is the one for today, the sample report. And when you click that, you're going to have a PDF of a fake report that I did right off the top of my head. So getting back to this, effective age is 18 years, what I've got filled in here. And that is kind of I think, a strange place to put that effective age because I don't really think we know it until we've done the cost approach. So I fill this in after I do the cost approach. That 18 years represents the amount of depreciation. And just to show you what effective age means, here's the definition from the Dictionary of Real Estate Appraisal. Um, the age of a property that is based on the amount of observed deterioration. So that would be the physical part of the effective age, and obsolescence, which could be functional and external, that it has sustained, which may be different from its chronological age. I would say it always is different than its chronological age. And to reemphasize that point about there being functional and external and physical all wrapped up into that effective age estimate, here's a reference from page 561 from the Appraisal of Real Estate. In applying the concepts of economic life, effective age, and remaining economic life expectancy, appraisers consider all elements of depreciation in one calculation. And I can't tell you how happy I was when I found that. I was actually pointed in that direction by a USPAP instructor. But when I saw that, I realized that we don't need to figure out functional, external, and physical and add them all together. We can just lump everything together under effective age, or I put it in the physical category. So let's skip past this for a minute. We're going to go through that step by step, but I like to start in the cost approach. And this will be something that you can download and take as a PDF and use it like you will. But here's the cost approach for this house. This $128,900 is 30% of the cost because our effective age is 18 years, right? 18 is 30% of 60 years. So we're coming to a value conclusion of 450. Now, I also want to emphasize that we're not using the cost approach as an indication of value. We're not using circular reasoning, like assuming a number and then trying to appraise to it. We're using the cost approach simply as an analytical tool. So going back up to the indicated value by sales comparison approach 450, cost approach came from that result 459. But then I make a point that the sales comparison approach is given most weight because it shows market reaction to similar alternatives. The cost approach is used to show the contributory value of the improvements. And then the income approach is not used in this case because of lack of data, and it's not an investor type of a property. Now, depreciated cost is kind of an interesting concept, depreciated cost, this $300,000, that is what the market pays for the house. If the total is 450, if that's the correct total, so if we start with 450 and we subtract 30, now we're at 420. And if we subtract 120 for the land, the market's paying $300,000 for the house. So that's the depreciated cost. You could also think of that as the contributory value of the house. Now, some of the other things to note, I always have this boilerplate on page 3 so that I can show the relationship between the cost approach and the income approach, or excuse me, the cost approach and the sales comparison approach, because they really should show the same result, right, if we're doing them both properly. Adjustment calculations for building cost categories such as GLA, bath count, and if you can picture the grid for a minute, from the bath count down to the bottom of the grid, that's all the building categories. So we've got GLA, bath count, basement size and finish, garage count, fireplace, and so on. All of those are adjusted based on the amount they contribute to value. By definition, depreciated replacement cost is the amount that the building contributes to site value. So the building adds 300,000 to the site plus the site improvements to get to this 450. Effective age of 18 years on page 1 gives us 30% depreciation. So that means the market is paying 70% of replacement cost for the buildings. And then it says, see the depreciation calculation attached, which includes the 70% factor applied to the relevant cost categories. So notice this, that 300,000 is 70% of 430. So there's the total estimate of cost new, 430. 300,000 is 70%. And then if you look down here at remaining economic life, 42 years is 70% of 60, right? 60 times 0.7 is 42 years. So this is all putting together a pretty tight story for the reviewer to see how we're doing things. Now, here's my development of my site value. I state if there are site sales, I include those, and I put those on a page in the report. There weren't any in this case, so I used the allocation method, and I applied it at the 2022 assessor loan-to-value ratio. It was 27%, and I applied that 27% to the median price of 445. And just to be consistent in the report, there's my 445 predominant value. So that's how the this is called ratio analysis, and as well as being called allocation. And then the assessor estimate, I include that so that I can do some reconciliation and say that I think the most weight is given to the allocation method because assessor estimates tend to lag the current market. And you'll see that, at least in my market, the assessor's estimate is always behind a year or two. So that's how I try to tie it together into a nice tidy package. I state I'm using replacement cost new, not reproduction cost. And the reason I use replacement cost is I have current cost data. So National Building Cost Manual 2024 is how I say the source of the data. I don't say Solomon. Solomon is like saying, it's a national cash register company calculator. It's just a calculator. It's kind of developed in Excel. You could do this in Excel. My partner has coded it into a C# that can be served on a website, but we're just a calculator. We're not a source of data. We're just repeating the data and manipulating it in some ways, for instance, to find marginal cost, and we've talked about that before. And by the way, if you're new to Solomon, this is going to be at a pretty high level today. Please get a hold of me and we'll schedule a Zoom time. It's free, and I'll take you through the whole process. So National Building Cost 2024, the quality rating from the cost service is 4. They have a scale of 6 being low and 1 being high, and 4 happens to fit this house. They call it good standard. So quality class 4, good standard is used. The effective date is 2024. These are the pages in National Building Costs that contain everything that we're using within Solomon. And then I always make this point, as is value of site improvements includes depreciation to those features. So this 30,000, you don't have to figure out the depreciation. You just put it in as the depreciated cost of the improvements. And then the age life method of depreciation assumed in this report includes all elements of depreciation to the improvements in one calculation shown in the physical category. So I put it here, but that includes physical, functional, and external. All of them go here. And then I just make the statement economic life minus effective age equals remaining economic life. So this is a very powerful and that analytical tool. If you just do the cost approach, starting with a hypothetical value. Again, we're not using this to show the value. We're starting with the value in mind to find what the depreciation is. And then you've all seen how we develop adjustments with that. And I'm going to scroll down here. This is what I put in my report. I call this page depreciated cost adjustment calculations. And that's just simply a screenshot of Solomon. So it shows my market value estimate, my site value. Remember, my site improvements were 30, my zip code, my quality. It goes through I call this the contributory value calculator because from here up, it is the cost approach. But then from here down, we include economic life, which is that's filled automatically for you. Whenever you say Q4, this will come in as 60 years. Effective age is calculated in this calculator to be included on page 1 of the report, right? And the way that effective age is calculated, we know the depreciated cost is 300, right? That's that 450 minus 30 minus 120 is 300. The cost new is 429, so there has to be 129 of depreciation, and 129 divided by 429 is 30% depreciation. 30% of the 60-year economic life is 18 years effective age. So it's a nice, tidy report here. And if depreciation is 30%, we know percent contributory value is 70. So here are the adjustments, assuming the market is paying 70% of cost for the house. And that's a good place to start with depreciated cost. The problem with depreciated cost, it's got a lot of advantages, but one disadvantage is that some parts of the house depreciate faster than other parts. So we try to handle that by saying percentage of economic life. Like down here for the deck, I've said 33%, meaning a 20-year lifespan for a deck, right? Economic life is 60 for everything as a whole. So 33% for the deck, this cost of one more foot of 27, that's 70% of the cost of one more square foot of a deck times 0.33. That's an $8 per foot deck adjustment if you make a deck adjustment. I personally don't usually make adjustments down in this range, but if you need to make one, that's where they are. Here's the garage stall, the additional garage stall. I don't think those depreciate any faster than the house as a whole. Same with the bathrooms. I think there could be a case made that the second fireplace might depreciate because of functional depreciation. And the GLA, that's an interesting category. We use a number to start out of 63% of the 60 years. And that's because GLA includes short-lived items like an asphalt shingle roof, which lasts 20 years. It's got paint and carpet that lasts 10 years. It's got HVAC equipment that might last 25 or 30. There's a lot of the house that has got that needs to be replaced during the first 60 years of its life, right? So it's got a lower percentage of 60, and that's a survey result of appraisers. That might not be true in your case, so kind of hold that in your hand loosely. And there's other ways to figure out a GLA adjustment within Solomon. So this is a key. That's something I put in my report. I'm referring to it up here on in my comments. GLA is reconciled with between MLS and assessor data. Here it is. The building cost categories. Building categories are adjusted using the depreciated cost method. Remember, that's a recognized method. See commentary on page 3. We talked about that. That's right here. And then the depreciated cost adjustment calculations attached. So now I'm going to switch over to the worksheet that I put together in Excel, and we're going to take these adjustments in order. Okay. It's important that we follow a certain order of making adjustments. And just to review again, all elements of depreciation are included in one calculation. There's the definition of economic life, the period over which improvements to real estate contribute to value, and we should say for their intended for their highest and best use. And then here's the reference that we have for 60 years effective age. That comes from the people that actually compiled the cost data. So I like to start with that. And then remaining economic life, it's how much longer the building will contribute economically to the property, which is different than physically, obviously. And here's our recognized methods. Depreciated cost is where I like to start because it does segregate each component in the grid from anything else. We don't have to worry about collinearity when we're doing depreciated cost adjustments. They're just very discrete. They're separated because they have a cost assigned to them. Other methods, paired data and group data, those are under an umbrella called sensitivity analysis, which we will use. We'll also be using adjusted pairs in this example, and then we'll be using some ranking analysis. So Solomon pretty much covers all the bases. We'll use secondary data possibly to verify other adjustments. We'll do some graphic analysis. We don't do trends or income differences, but pretty much everything else is covered in Solomon. And here's that quote about sensitivity analysis. Paired data and group data are variants of sensitivity, which is a method used to isolate, and that's a key word, to isolate the effect of individual variables on value. And again, depreciated cost is an excellent way to isolate individual variables. In fact, you can do the whole bottom half of the grid and isolate the effect of individual variables on value by using depreciated cost. When we get into the sensitivity analysis, this is a definition that's important from statisticsHowTo.com. There's something called the coefficient of determination that we're going to find when we do sensitivity. And it is used to, the coefficient of determination is used to analyze how differences in one variable, in our case, the dollars variable, can be explained by a difference in the second variable. And in our case, that's going to be one of our adjustment categories. So it just shows how the change in one determines the change in another. And it's on a scale of 0 to 1, 1 being 100%. If you've got a 1-to-1 ratio, you know that's a very good adjustment. If you're down below 0.4, you probably shouldn't be making that adjustment. So we've talked about this. Just go over this a little bit more. This is a comment. You can use it or not. I thought it was pretty good doing a review that GLA is reconciled between MLS and assessor data. A lot of times agents will include something like a porch and you can plainly see that it's GLA or that it's not GLA. Sometimes they'll include a basement, which is not GLA. So I do some reconciling, meaning I try to decide which is true. And then implied in the value is the marketability of the subject. Again, that's another comment that one of my banks asked me to include, and I thought it made some sense. The date of sale time adjustments are developed by applying the minus 3.3% annual rate of change. And that's something that I figured out outside of Solomon, actually in my MLS data. We can hop back to that later if we have some time. The building categories are adjusted using the depreciated cost method, and we talked about this. See the commentary on page 3 and the depreciated cost adjustment calculations. And then in this case, we're going to do a site size adjustment, and we're going to calculate that using adjusted pairs with comps 1 and 2, and the calculation is included. And then the condition adjustment we're going to develop using sensitivity analysis and refer to the chart that'll be included, and then state how we reconciled within the cost approach. I typically do it from least to most adjustments. Sometimes I would say the opinion of value is developed with most weight on comp 1 because it is next door to the subject. Come up with a reason that's quick and pithy and believable, and write that as your final statement. So here is the sample that I showed you. You've downloaded that sample, right? But the first adjustment we make is all of the depreciated cost adjustments. If you look back on that, and that is included in your handout there. But the bath adjustment is $8,600 for a full bath. I make that up on the second line up here, so I can. I actually should have put it up here. So here's the square footage. I've got an adjustment of GLA from the cost or from the depreciated cost method. And I've got a 2-stall garage adjustment, $8,400, and a fireplace adjustment of $2,800. So I've got the bottom half of the grid done. And now I look at the top half of the grid, and I want to do a market to market adjustment. But before that, I want to do this cash equivalency adjustment. That's a controversial topic nowadays. But to me, the way I look at it is I have never seen a cash sale in a comparable that was a cash sale and had concessions. So that's just my simplistic way to say, I don't think the concessions have anything to do with market value. And others might disagree. I know that there's some things going on right now with interest rate buydowns that are kind of hard to track. But that's just my attitude toward concessions. They don't add to market value. So I make that adjustment, and you don't need to have any other input except this, in my view, maybe some calls to some agents. The date of sale time adjustment, there's a calculator within Solomon. Remember, we found that it was a minus 3.3%. So I'm going to make adjustments to these 3 properties based on that. We've already done these with depreciated cost. So here is my Solomon market time. I would include that as an example. Comp 1 is 452 minus the 12 of concessions equals 440. There's the contract date of that comparable and the closed or the effective date of the report. It calculates the interval in days, which is 28 days at 3.3%. It ends up being $1,100. I just round that. Comp 2 on Ash Street, 425. It was November, so it was further back in time, 58 days. So it's got a larger adjustment, even though it's a smaller sale price. And then in this one, Comp 3, 454, even older from October, more days at the same rate, and a market time adjustment of $350 or $3,600. So there is the adjustments for cash equivalency and market to market. The next thing I want to do, because I have an opportunity to do it, now that I've made these adjustments to comps 1 and 2, notice they have equal room count, equal GLA, equal garage stalls. Everything is equal except the site size. So you'll get used to doing this. You want to read that grid and figure out, okay, what adjustment can I do next? It's almost like a crossword puzzle. And you'll not see this kind of an opportunity very often. Of course, this is a class example, but so I want to do an adjustment for site size. So it looks like 27.5 and 22.5 are the square footages, and the difference in adjusted sale price is between 450 and 443. So there's $7,000 due to this difference of 5,000 square feet or so. So here's the example of how to do that in sensitivity analysis. I say site size 27.5, 22.5, 451.1. That's the adjusted sale price, right? There's no other difference between these two properties. 442.5 is the adjusted sale price for this comparable. And when I click the enter button, it shows me a nice straight line. The slope of that line is $1.52. So for every change of square feet here, you've got a $1.52 change in adjusted sale price. Here's the R square. That's that coefficient of determination. And by definition, remember from geometry, a line is connects 2 points, right? We've only got 2 points to connect. So the line of best fit has to be right through both of those lines. So that's a 1. And there's that slope of the line, y equals $1.52 times the number of square feet, plus this would be $408,000 if you can read scientific notation. So now we've got our cash equivalency adjustment and our market change adjustment. And now we've entered, I'm using Solomon here, I'm using total, $1.52 per foot. So there's no adjustment here. There's a $7,600 adjustment here. And using that same rate, I've got 15.2 over here. So now these two are equalized. And you can see that down at the bottom of the grid, they're very similar. So you know that you've done that by finding the only difference and adjusting for that. Now you've got this difference. We've got a C4 all the way across, except this one's a C3. So it looks like there's like a $22,000 or so adjustment for condition. Now, a few minutes ago, I talked about how we're going to be using some ranking analysis, which is a legitimate method in the appraisal of real estate. So we're going to rank the condition. And the reason I'm doing that is because if I say C4 here, this can't read letters, first of all. It can't read zeros, and it has to have an ascending order. Like a 4 has to be better than a 3, rather than a 3 being better than a 4, okay? So I've just used a condition ranking system, and I like to think of it as how you do a 5-star rating for a hotel or a restaurant. So a 3-star house is average condition. We've got a 450, 100, and 450, 200. And then the 4, the good condition house, which is a Q or a C3 in our language, it's 472. So you enter those numbers, click analysis, and it draws this line that is almost, I mean, you can't see the difference here because 450 and 450, 100 and 200 are just about equal. So that's a $23,000 adjustment rounded. So there's my support for my condition adjustment. And I make the minus $23,000 condition adjustment. And now my adjusted sale prices are lined up right across the bottom, supporting 450. So that's how I think Solomon should be used. Do the adjustments below the grid with depreciated cost by doing the cost approach, supporting effective age, which is an assignment result. Remaining economic life is an assignment result that we're supposed to support. In fact, I'll show you that on USPAP. First of all, we're supposed to be aware of, understand, and correctly employ recognized methods and techniques. And the recognized methods are in the appraisal of real estate 15th, and we've done paired data, adjusted pairs, and we've talked about how these are both grouped together. Those are called sensitivity. And it says here that an appraiser must avoid making an unsupported assumption or premise about market area trends. We're all well aware of that for many years. But more recently, I don't think people were paying attention to this, but we're also supposed to be supporting effective age and remaining life. So Solomon will do that for you by running that cost approach, not as a means of getting to a value, but as a way of analyzing a scenario that you're involved in. You know, you make an assumption about the value after you have measured the subject and you've looked at the interior photos and driven by the comps for the comp photos. You start off with an idea that, yeah, I think that contract price is pretty close to market, and then you test it in the cost approach and in the grid. And if everything lines up, then you've got a well-supported assignment result. So back to explaining your adjustments again. I'm going to go over to this. This shows the finished product, so you can download that, take any of that wording that you would like. I think the key things are that in the reconciliation, we state that the cost approach is used to show the contributory value of the improvements. And remember, a contributory value of the improvements is the exact same thing as depreciated cost. There it is. Depreciated cost is 300. And the reason it's 300 is because 451 minus 30 minus 120 is 301. Now to get back to Solomon, I just wanted to familiarize some of you newer people. This is an excellent video narrated by Tim Anderson that talks about the basics of depreciated cost, if that's new to you. And then we do have a free 14-day demo. The way to find or to get to that demo is click order now. And then here explains what the pricing is. And then if you just click sign up, all you need to do is enter email, name, address, and so on. And there's no credit card required for the demo. And I'm pleased to hear from you. I'm happy to do a live one-to-one Zoom meeting. I've got 2 of those scheduled tomorrow, and there's no charge for that. They're free. And we'll go through one of your projects, or just kind of keep it at a just pretend kind of a level to see how the thing works together.